There are some places that we should probably leave alone, areas that have been forgotten by time, or perhaps deliberately buried from our collective memory. But there are also other places that we shouldn't ever go near, places that might be best to stay away from for fear of what lurks in the shadows. Today, we are going to look at one such location. All of the footage you are about to see was found on an old hard drive in a dusty box of a deceased relative's belongings. The most recent date stamp on any of the files was 2007. So for over a decade, these clips had remained hidden from view until now. The videos contain something sinister, something disturbing, something scary, and while I am unsure exactly what it is, I do know that you won't want to be outside after watching this. I don't remember much about the deceased relative who owned this collection of videos, aside from his name being George, and that he passed away several years ago in a tragic car accident. George was my grandmother's brother, so technically my uncle, but we never really knew him well. He lived a rather secluded life, seldom venturing out of his isolated house in the woods. We only ever saw him at family gatherings, which were few and far between. But what we always noticed was how withdrawn he was, preferring to keep to himself and avoid any sort of conversation. It was clear that he wasn't comfortable around people, even family. We always wondered why. On the day of his funeral, my grandmother received an old wooden box containing various items. She kept most of it, but felt that some things would be of more use to me. As a budding filmmaker and photographer, she thought that maybe I could put some of the stuff to good use. Among the contents of the box were several audio cassettes, old film negatives, and this DVD. When my grandmother gave them to me, she said, "You can have these. Maybe you can find something interesting with them." Little did she know that the DVDs were about to capsize my entire perception of reality. The first thing I noticed was the handwriting on the disc itself. The spidery script was difficult to decipher, but I eventually worked out that it read, "Forest." On the back, the word shadows had been written and the word shadows was circled. Curiosity got the better of me, and so I put the disc into my computer and waited to see what would happen. The first file on the disc was titled Day 1, and the content was equally cryptic. It seemed to show nothing more than a vast, dark forest with tall trees and thick undergrowth. The sky was overcast and a constant mist hung low, shrouding the gnarled trunks and branches in an eerie haze. There was no sound, just silence. But something about the woods seemed off, like they were watching me. Every so often, a twig snapped or a bird flew overhead. But that was it. Or at least that was what it seemed. When I looked again, I realized that whatever had made the noise wasn't actually there. I went back and watched the clip a second time, and that's when I saw it. At first, it was almost impossible to make out, just a blur at the edge of my vision. But then as I continued to watch, it became clearer and clearer. Something was walking through the trees. It was large, humanoid in shape, but covered in what appeared to be bark. Its limbs were long and spindly, like the branches of a dead tree, and its head seemed almost skeletal. Then it would vanish. Then it would reappear further down the path. Then it would vanish again. It didn't seem to have any discernible face, just a gaping black hole where its mouth should have been. I couldn't help but feel that it was staring directly at me, its empty sockets boring into my very soul. I stopped the video and tried to work out what I had just seen, but my mind refused to cooperate. It took me several minutes to calm my racing heartbeat, but eventually I was able to press play again. This time I watched more closely. As the creature moved through the trees, I noticed that it seemed to be carrying something in its hand. At first, I thought it was another one of those strange, spindly branches, but then it stopped. It raised the object above its head and it began to glow. A sickly green light emanated from its bark-like hands, bathing the forest floor in an unnatural hue. And then I saw what it was holding. It was a lantern. In the lantern was a flickering flame. Time seemed to stop. All sound faded away, and I was transfixed by what I was seeing. The creature came closer to the camera, and I could see its face, or what was left of it. Its skin was stretched tight over its skull-like head, and where its nose should have been, there was a circular indentation. It was as if someone had taken a drill and punched clean through its face. There were no eyes, only two vacant black pits. Then it vanished, and that's when I heard a knock at the door. Startled, I jumped out of my seat and rushed to answer it, thinking that maybe my sister had come to borrow something, but nobody was there. Confused, I opened the door fully, expecting to find that she had perhaps knocked on the wrong door, but there was nothing there. Nobody had been outside. Yet I could have sworn that I had heard a knock. Had I imagined it? When I turned back to the computer, the screen had gone blank. Terrified, I pressed play again, but all that showed was a blue folder. What had happened? Had I imagined the whole thing? Was it some kind of virus? I didn't know. Too scared to stick around, I shut the computer and hid the disk in a drawer, vowing never to look at it again. But the next day, I found myself inexplicably drawn to it. I pulled it out and put it back in the computer. It loaded to the desktop, and there were 3 new files, each dated a day later than the last. One was titled Day 2. I clicked on it and braced myself. This time, there was sound. It was subtle, distant voices speaking in hushed tones, accompanied by what sounded like footsteps crunching on dry leaves. I soon realized that the voices weren't coming from the speakers. They were coming from somewhere else, somewhere much closer. It was as if whoever was speaking was right behind me. I turned around in my seat to look, but nobody was there. The voices grew louder, and I could hear them getting closer. Then I felt something cold and slimy slither up my spine. I turned back to the screen, but I didn't want to. I knew what I was about to see, and my mind refused to accept it. Whatever it was standing right behind me, and I could hear it breathing. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I was paralyzed with fear. Then it spoke. Its voice was raspy and hollow, like it had been eroded away by the passage of time. It said, "Don't turn around. Don't turn around." Its breath was hot on my neck, and I could feel its fetid stench, like rotting vegetation and decaying flesh. Then its hand clamped over my mouth, stifling my scream. And that's when I saw it. The camera fell to the floor, and the image flickered for a moment before stabilizing. It was still recording, but now it was looking up. The creature towered over me, its face inches from mine. Its eyes burned with a cold fire, and its mouth was filled with rows upon rows of needle-like teeth. It leaned closer, its hot, fetid breath washing over me, and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was sitting in my chair. The computer was on, and the video was still playing. The room was dark, but I could see enough to make out the shape of the creature looming over me. I pressed stop and let the video finish. The screen went blue, and I waited for something else to happen, but nothing did. I unclamped my eyes from the monitor and searched the room, but there was nothing there. It had vanished. I quickly deleted the file and closed down the computer. I wanted to get away from that room, from that house. I threw the disc into the bin and fled into the forest. I ran and didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my own home. And even then, I didn't stop. I kept running until I was sure that whatever it was gone. Since that day, I haven't dared go back. I don't know what lurks in the shadows of that forest, but I do know that whatever it is, it doesn't want to be found. I can still feel its burning eyes boring into my skull, its fetid breath on my neck, its clammy fingers digging into my arm. Whatever it is, it's evil, and it wants me dead.